This is episode number 27 with Marcelo Tubert. Coming up.
I give the worst performance you're ever likely to see an actor give. I remember there's a scene where I have to laugh hysterically. As my scenes are on there, I'm just slipping lower into my seat. I get to a certain point where I'm getting divorced, and I go to my dad and I said, "Here are the keys to the BMW. Here are all my credit cards. Thank you so much for this beautiful opportunity you've given me. But I'm an actor, and I'm a big boy now." And I jumped off the ledge. It's all about the process. Stay out of the results. You have no control. And I mean, there are things that I really want to get them. And I try not to think about it. Sometimes they creep in. But basically, after you're done, the audition, you're done.
My cup is dry, and recalling my deeds is thirsty work. Who wants to buy the next round, huh? You?
If you're looking for what it takes to be an actor long-term over the course of your life, then you've come to the right place, and you're going to really enjoy today's episode. Today's guest was born in Argentina, moved to LA at a young age, felt very lost with his career, almost quit after his first TV role, and eventually booked a job that changed his life. Hey there, this is Nathan Egan, and welcome to The Working Actor's Journey, connecting you with lifelong professionals. Today's guest is Marcelo Tubert, an award-winning actor who has worked across film, TV, and theater and done lots of voiceover work, including plenty of English dubbing for Netflix shows. This podcast is designed to show you how the work is done, what the realities of the working actor life are like, and to share all the different ways actors have come to this career. There is no one path and no single answer. We want to learn from all of those further down the road, to shorten the learning curve and to discover what helps and what doesn't when it comes to having a lifelong career as an actor. So our guest today, Marcelo, has been a working actor for 40 years, with over 160 IMDb credits across film, TV, and voiceover, plus all the unlisted video game and dubbing work he's done. He received the 2005 Ovation Award as Best Supporting Actor for his work in San Franciscan, an adaptation of Molière's Scapan, and is a founding member of the Antilles Theater Company. He recently appeared on episodes of Star Trek Picard and Disney's Diary of a Future President. It's a great chat, plus we get a quick look at Marcelo's process with a voiceover audition for a video game, and you'll hear what he sent in. Quick reminder, don't miss our current rehearsal room workshop with Rando Duk Kim and Annie Okiogrosso. They are taking you through how to use the first folio in Shakespeare, something they have been doing for 50-plus years. Do you know what commas and semicolons tell the actor? There is so much to glean that gives you tons of opportunities and choices and will make your performances so much more rewarding and memorable. There are a couple days left to be part of the virtual audience where you can attend live or watch the replays. Head to workingactorsjourney.com to find out more and sign up. We also have the new free guide to download called Keys the Pros Use to Unlock Any Script. This shares the actual questions, approach, and process the professionals use when working on any material, plays, scripts, audiobooks, and more, from those who've done this work. Bonus, you'll also receive the full Working Actor's Journey kit, including all the other guides and more. There's wisdom from past guests Armin Shimmerman, Elizabeth Dennehy, and Tonya Mendola, along with director Brendan Fox, dramaturg Gideon Rappaport, and more. Get your copy of the guide now at workingactorsjourney.com/sign up, and there's also a link in the episode description. And finally, if you're really enjoying this podcast, you can become a patron. Starting at just $2 per month, get exclusive access to behind the scenes and additional content, and be a part of taking this show to the next level. And for those who join at the co-star level or higher, just $5 or more per month, you also receive a 10% discount on our workshops and programs, including our current workshop with Randall and Annie. A shout out and thank you to one of our newest co-star patrons, Joan. Yes, you could hear your name in a future episode. Okay, back to the chat with Marcelo. I am so glad I've had the opportunity to connect with him more over the past couple of years and involve him in the workshops we've been doing, like King John and The Merchant of Venice, which you can check out on the podcast and YouTube. He is such a funny, humble, and kind individual. It was fascinating to hear about his early years in Argentina, the many ups and downs, and all the relationships, mentors, and teachers who helped him along the way. We covered a lot of ground, so get ready for a very full ride. A lot of laughs, too. So here we go with episode number 27. Please enjoy my chat with Marcelo Tubert. We started season 3 of Money Heist, and I remember you had mentioned you were in that, and I'm like, I don't think I've seen the character, because we watch it with Spanish with the subtitles,
which is that's how I watch all foreign things. Yes.
Yeah. And so I went back because I remembered, I know Asaf Cohen a little bit, and I'd seen his name in the dubbing credits, and I went back to the scene. I'm like, I think he plays the governor, and I listened. I'm like, as soon as the governor started talking, I'm like, oh yeah, that's totally Marcelo.
Yeah.
And how, did that project just come from an audition, or I mean, I know there are like groups and looping groups and all the dubbing groups and all this kind of stuff. Like once you're in, but where did that one come from?
I think I auditioned for that role. The director's Matt Kohler, who I now I have a long association of working with him. He just basically cast me. Anyway, so Matt Kohler is the dub director, amazingly creative man. He's a musician and director, just many things. And so we got really hit it off. And so I pretty much, I've done leads, and there's another show I'm really, really proud of that I did this the lead inspector in this series, Spanish series. I'm not going to even remember the name of it, but I've done so many of these now. But this was one particularly, what the hell was the name of that? Oh, it may come to me.
Is it on your IMDb? Because I can always
No, I don't know if those things show up on my IMDb. It might, actually. And it was kind of a Columbo. We finally figured out he was kind of a older Columbo kind of guy.
Oh, right. Because I know what you mean. Like sometimes they don't list the dubbing work.
Yeah, it's called, I'll text him. While we're talking. And see. Yeah, so I just sent it off to him. So, yeah, okay. So a lot of these, Netflix says I'm kind of, one of the projects I was recommended for, to just do.
Yeah.
I'm working with about 6 or 8 directors right now. I just get booked. Sometimes I have leads. Sometimes I go in and do 3 characters or 4 characters and a little walla.
And so like by just, by being booked, I assume it's a sense of like, they are just, familiar with your work. They're confident that, you can, they know what you can do. And so they're like, yeah, let's get Marcelo in.
I can deliver, right. And then a project just recently, they said Netflix came back with, he's just all over the place. He's a little overexposed. Give me a Marcelo Tubert type. I mean, I just dropped in a series yesterday called Elves.
Okay.
I said Norwegian, I think. And I played a really different kind of, this kind of big He-Man kind of tough man, a few words, which is not good for dubbing, but
well, as long as they don't pay you per word, it's just a session fee.
The dubbing, I am particularly good at dubbing. We talked about instincts before,
right? Yeah.
So with dubbing, I don't see things ahead of time. Basically, I'm on the job. I go to the studio, and they play me they tell me what the story is. They play the first scene, and so in dubbing, you have to it's instant acting.
Right.
You have to feel what that character, you're not creating it. You are creating it in English, but you have to fit the emotional state, the level of volume state, everything that what you're seeing on screen. I'm able to look at a scene pretty much once, and then I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
And I'm very good at lip syncing. It's a very collaborative process because sometimes the translations aren't that good. Or there's a line, I always know when I'm trying to get a line in a character's mouth and I stumble over it and I think many times it's because the translation is not right.
Right. Well, and that that's certainly like a value add service that you bring, knowing Spanish as well as you do, that you're just like, you know what the character's actually saying. And
Yes,
so
but the dubbings I do are Norwegian, French,
I guess
Brazil. It doesn't matter. The only thing I can help in those areas is sometimes if I'm doing like in Money Heist with Matt, who's just this amazing collaborative director.
Yeah.
They all are really. Everybody that I've worked with is just amazing. I said, you know what? Play that again for me. Let me see what the Spanish is.
Right. Oh,
and then
okay.
And he knows a little bit of Spanish too, so he has a script and we're able to figure it out. And many times that's it. And in today's, the old time dubbing was very fake and phony. The acting, it sounded like something that was dubbed, right, in the old days. Well, today they're looking for that it's that character, the reality of emotional life. And also the interesting thing is that when you're recording, you got to record with the volume that the character is giving in the original language.
Okay.
And so you get that by listening to it. And sometimes, they're in a close-up in here or just in the eyes. It's really intimate. And you're not projecting. You're talking like this, and it's just not that. It's just because that's what the character's doing.
Right.
And so
do you find like, because I haven't done a lot of animation work or anything like that, but, I know sometimes clips I've seen or whatever, people are giving a lot of options and then they'll just edit it later, pick the one they want. Like with the dubbing work, is it pretty much, you do it and maybe there's a little bit of an adjustment from the director, you do it again and then that's it. You're not giving them 10 options.
No. I mean, basically if, I do it through, and also when I listen back, I always want to listen back before because they do a take and then they make sure everything fits because it's all digital, so the engineer's in there, so maybe
they're like editing, they're doing it like in real time almost.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so if they always usually do a backup because they need to have a backup and something else to choose from. And sometimes I'll hear it and I go, you know what? I think I can do that better. There's something there. I can hear it. I've become so fine tuned to it and they let me play. And so basically you just do one or two. And the directors are really, are really great about, because they're seeing the overall picture about telling you, I think there, you need to be a little stronger or whatever the direction is.
Right.
And so I've it's not a lot of money. It's our worst SAG contract that we have. But
really?
Yeah. I mean, in the life of real people, it's good money because it's $130 an hour with a 2-hour minimum. And sometimes I'm there for half an hour.
Right.
So in anybody's world, that's good money.
Sure.
But in the world of show business and voiceover, it's not. And there are no residuals because it's a buyout. It's gotten better. It used to be $50 an hour, $65 an hour. But I do it gladly. It is a workout as an actor. A lot of Antians doing this,
Right. Yeah.
John DeMita is the one
sure.
He's the one that got me started.
Okay, yeah, I know. Like 15 years ago, I remember talking to John about he was doing loop groups.
Well, loop group is different,
right? Sure. Yeah, the Walla Walla and all. Like, right, I know that, but I know he was involved even back then, and had gone on to I think he's directed a bunch of things.
Yeah, now he's got a big promotion. He's like the head of dubbing or something.
Like, okay, cool. And do you have any relationships with like executives at Netflix? Have you met any of them, stayed in touch or anything like that, or is it?
No. Yes and no. There's one guy that I met through Matt, who is in charge of I think his Netflix dubbing, and I see him every once in a while, but I have no relationship. Although the Money Heist was such the number one show when I started working on it that Netflix had us a bunch of the people who did the dubbing over to their offices to watch an episode.
Oh, cool.
And talk about it. And they had their people. There probably were 200 people in the room.
And I think we talked about this, at one point, but, I remember seeing data of like how many people are tuning into these dubbed versions of shows. And, it's just, I mean, not only is Money Heist specifically kind of a global phenomenon, but the fact that, people are not watching things in the original language. They want to watch them in their native language, which is so foreign I'm not trying to make a pun there, but it's so foreign to me to do that because I'm just like, well, no, I want to hear it in the Spanish or I want to hear it in the French or the Japanese or whatever it is.
I'm with you because I think that's where the acting, those people created this thing, right?
Yeah.
So whether good or bad, that's it. But, the reason I'm working so much is because America is lazy. They don't like to read. They don't like to read subtitles.
Yeah, I know. It's funny because when I was watching one of the scenes that you were in, there's a couple other characters like Nairobi was in there and Tokyo. And it's, sound is such a fascinating thing because I was talking to music that when you hear a song a certain way, that if you hear like an early jam session and it sounds different, it just sounds weird and bad because you've become so accustomed to a certain way that song is performed. Even if the artist does like a live version, it's like, play it like on the album. Like that's what I want to hear. So it's fascinating to me that when they're doing this dubbing stuff, they cast actors that sometimes had such different qualities to their voice than the original actors. Now, maybe with, your character, the governor, I hadn't been, spending hours and hours with him already.
Why?
So it's like, well, no, because it was just.
I'm kidding.
Because he's introduced in season 3.
Yes.
But like, so, you have all season 1 and 2 to get accustomed to all these other people that when you hear a different voice, it's like, if it's much higher in timbre or whatever, it's like, that's an interesting, almost just creative decision that they went, they didn't try to find like, a huskier female voice for this person because that was the original, and I don't know. I was having this conversation that it's just, you feel like, well, the original actors, they have such like, nuanced voices or interesting qualities to their voices. Why wouldn't people want to listen to that? Or if you're going to do the dubbing, why not, try to find good actors that also have similar, qualities to their voice?
I think what they do is they find good actors. Dorit Simone, who's one of the casting directors I'm friends with, and she loves theater actors. She loves theater actors because they bring it, right? They bring it.
Yeah.
And what happens is people who listen to dubs,
yep.
My voice is the voice of the governor. They don't
right.
then they play the original. They go, oh, that sounds terrible, because they become accustomed
exactly.
to what they become accustomed to.
Right. It's the same thing that I'm going through, but just in the reverse. Now, whenever I've traveled in South America, there are different parts of that country that the Spanish can sound so, based on regionalisms. Like I remember in Cartagena, I was just like, I'm pretty sure they speak Spanish here, but I do not know what these people are saying. It was like so fast and had a lot of coastal influences and all this kind of stuff. Do you find that like, just you watching different shows and movies, like, do you have to kind of attune your ear to the Spanish that people are talking?
Yes, because Spanish is the sound from each country. And even within the country, I'm from Argentina. So,
right. Yeah.
Right. So in Buenos Aires, the Spanish was really influenced by the Italian immigration.
Okay.
So when they speak, no, decime una cosa, che, la cosa es que, vos sabes, no, vino este muchacho, Nathan Hagen, para hacer una entrevista, pero no me hinche las pelotas, It sounds Italian,
Right.
And then where I was born in Córdoba, los cordobeses hablan así porque el Nathan me está haciendo una entrevista con, it's a totally different thing.
Wow.
And even within countries, within the country,
right,
the colloquialisms and as language evolves,
right,
it's so different. And so expressions that you hear, I did the looping, the ADR work on all 5 seasons of Narcos.
Oh, really?
We were in Colombia, and we had a couple of my friends, 3 of them were Colombians, and so I picked up that accent to work on that show. And of course, the idioms, the names of vegetables, the way you swear, are totally different. Cartagena is different than the capital, and it's different than Medellin. And
and you can find I guess what they would call, especially somebody learning the language, that there are definitely pockets where you can find a pure Spanish. That doesn't mean, that's not a comment on like whether it's good or bad, but just like for somebody listening to learn the language, it's like, this is kind of what you would hear, in terms of a textbook Spanish.
That would be Colombia.
Yeah.
Bogota, the capital.
Right.
Because that is the pure, it's kind of unaccented. It's a very neutral sound. I mean, not totally. You can tell Colombians, of course, like Argentinians, can tell accents, that they're right or not. But it is the Colombian. I think they pride themselves on having just a pure sound.
Now, obviously the Money Heist show all takes place in Spain, but for your ear, can you kind of place the actors? Like, I mean, I don't know if they're all Spanish actors or if you're listening, you're like, that guy is not from Spain, or
no,
that girl.
yes, I do pick that up. I'm trying to remember because I've not watched that show. So I mean, I just have watched my things that I've done, but I have watched Spanish movies in the original language, and all of a sudden, oh my God, that actor's Argentinian.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So, or they're within Mexican movies, you find, different accents.
I mean, I guess, it's probably similar to like in the States, you can hear Southern accents or regionalisms and things like that, or, in a more extreme example, like, Creole, even down in like Belize where the language is English primarily. I mean, there's Caribbean influences and Jamaican influences that, and like you said, like the idioms that it's just like, even when they're speaking English, it's just like, I don't know what you're saying. I know you're speaking English, but it's just
I've made a career of doing accents.
Oh yeah.
And I used to have a wonderful teacher named Gordon Hunt, who's Helen Hunt's dad. And,
cool.
I was in his class for 9 years, an amazing man. And what his take on accent was, people don't know. Just commit to what you're doing.
Yeah.
Which is true. You come up with a sound because there's people who speak other languages and then learn English.
Right.
Have different accents in English.
Right.
I mean, there's some that are just kind of standard and you can, you need to have them identified right away.
Right.
But,
and I mean, I do audiobook work and a lot of it is, and I would imagine it's probably similar in like, the work you're, a suggestion of the accent is plenty.
Yes.
And you don't need to sound like, Boris and Natasha or whatever. It's just like,
but
a little
darling, where is Moose and Squirrel? Yeah, you don't exactly.
No, you mentioned Argentina. I wanted to start there because I know that's where you were born, and you're gonna have to say the city again because I know I'm not going to say it. Cordoba.
Cordoba. That's very good.
Cordoba. Okay. All right. I guess I'm a quick learner. But in Cordoba, you grew up the first 7 years there? You were saying before?
Yeah. 7 years. So Cordoba is the second largest city in Argentina.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's the seat of unrest. Whenever unrest starts, it always starts in Cordoba because it's a college town. I mean, it's not a town; it's a huge, it's a huge metropolitan.
We call Boston a college town, right? Yeah, same
exactly.
kind of thing.
Yeah. So 7 years. So English is actually my second language. When I came here, I didn't speak English.
What do you remember from growing up in Argentina? I mean, like, was there a lot of family around? Was it just?
Yeah, I mean, I had my mom and my aunt and lots of their friends, my uncle. My dad was here for a couple of years. Eventually we came here too. And I mean, I have vivid memories when I was 3, almost 4 years old when Perón was overthrown. And during that revolution, there was a machine gun nest at our corner.
Wow.
You'd hear bombs at night. You hear gunfire. My whole family's they're all leftists. My grandfather was a Jewish communist atheist, but my uncle, would ride around on a motorcycle during this, and my aunt, they weren't married yet, but we were all worried sitting outside on the stoop because my uncle was past curfew and he wasn't home. And then I have wonderful memories too of my mom's friends who were all, many of them artists, painters, and musicians and writers and actors. So I have a pretty strong feel. Those things that are imprinted at an early age, culturally. And my parents did a really good job when we came to the United States of not allowing my sister and I to speak English in the house.
Oh, okay.
Where many of their friends,
yeah,
wanted to blend in, so their kids, they spoke English. And because of that, we maintained our Spanish, our bilingualness very strong, which wouldn't have happened if they had not put that. That was a rule in the house.
Right,
it was a hard, fast rule. So with my parents, we still speak Spanish, a little more Spanglish these days.
Yeah, sure.
With my siblings, we speak English with each other. It always feels weird to speak Spanish with them. And my brother, who's 12 years my junior, was born here. He didn't learn English till he went to school, kindergarten.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And so, like, back in Argentina, I know you said your dad was in the U.S., but like, what were your parents doing when you were growing up there?
Well, my mom was an actress. I mean, she worked. You didn't make a living being an actor in Cordoba.
Okay.
So it was, they call it it's a hobby, right?
Okay. Yeah.
But she was a member of a theater group. She had a kids radio show. Yeah. She worked as a secretary in a doctor's office, but was surrounded by art. My mom. My dad was more a business kind of guy. So I made my first stage debut at 3 years old. You may not know this.
I don't know this now.
Not many people know this. In Garcia Lorca's Yerma.
Okay.
So, Yerma is the story about this woman, and she yearns to be a mother and have children. I mean, it's a bigger story than that, but there is a dream. I'm only talking about from my perspective as an actor.
Of course, yes.
At 3 years old, right? So there's a dream sequence where Yerma dreams about this little boy she can't have. And so there was a visiting company, I don't know from where, that was doing the play. And the little boy got sick. So they threw the little white dream thing on me.
Right.
And pushed me out on stage. And just walk across and look at your mother, or look at this woman on stage who's there dreaming, and look at her, and then continue on, walk across. So that was my big debut. And then I retired from the theater. After that performance.
It was your first retirement. Yeah.
Yeah, it was my first retirement. My only retirement, really. And then, until I got to high school.
And so do you feel like the seed was planted at that time with acting, or like what else were you interested in? What else were you like? I mean, I know you're only a kid, but still.
Yeah, I really don't know, because I don't really remember it. I just from the stories. I don't really have I have like how memories, sometimes you wonder if they're real, they're not real.
Memories are like, what is it? Spanish writer, but Gabriel Garcia Marquez.
Yes.
It's like his works are all memory. What do they call them? Like memory play or something?
Yeah,
I can't remember the term, but it's they're like the dream awake state. It's like you're not exactly sure what's real.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what's real and not, but that I have that memory, and I don't know. I think just being around my mom and her friends, and then as I got into I was a really good student till I got into high school, and I just hated school. I was a C, D, and F student.
Really?
Yeah.
Was that just because you were bored, or you weren't getting the material, or?
I don't know. It was not a happy time in the sense of school. I just was lazy.
Oh, okay.
Although, that being said, I was a big reader. So, and if I was interested in a class, I would get a C, Like I took a biology class. One of my favorite teachers was a biology teacher.
Really?
Yeah, because he says, I'm going to teach you how to, what did he say? I'm going to teach you how to make sense of things. And as a result, you're going to learn biology. But I never turned in work. I never turned in reports. And as I went deeper into high school, I did less and less of that.
And how did your parents respond to that? I mean, were they very aware of it? Did they know?
Yeah, they weren't very happy. I was a big.
Were you just rebellious, Marcelo?
I was rebellious. I was a member of SDS back in junior high school. We were protesting the war. I was very active in the anti-war movement.
Okay, cool.
But I was a swimmer in high school, and that kept my interest. And the drama department kept my interest.
Oh, okay. So you started doing theater then?
Yes, in the 11th grade. And we had, when mime was still burgeoning just at the beginning of its thing, we had a mime troupe.
Now, you said your dad had been in the U.S. Was that like a conscious, did your family want to get out of Argentina, or like what was that? What was that whole...
It was a family drama.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that caused my parents to break up, and it was over my mom wanting to be an actress. And my dad was, old school, Jewish, Hispanic, macho man. He said she should be home with the kids, right? But that goes back to my dad's history of
course, yeah,
being kind of abandoned as a young man, and not having family, and all he wanted was family. And all of a sudden he has a family, and my mom is an artist, and it wasn't to his liking. And he
So did your mom not come with you to the States? Like, did she stay in Argentina?
No. So, no, it's a really, we could do just 2 hours on this. So, let me see. I don't know if there's any way to really I can condense it a little bit.
Okay, all right. I didn't know if it was like a business opportunity or something that took your dad to the States.
No, my dad was, his father, My grandfather,
Yeah.
paternal grandfather and grandmother were
Yeah.
Russian, born in Russia, and came to the United States and moved to an enclave in the South. There was a huge Jewish enclave, and I can't remember the state.
Okay.
And they had families, and they met each other and eloped, left their families,
Wow.
and went to Argentina, where my grandfather had his cousin. And so my father and his brother were born there. And when my dad was 5, Ewell Tubert, my grandfather, came to the United States, left that family again, and came to Los Angeles. And so my dad was raised by an uncle who was really an asshole, for lack of better words, just a dominating tyrant, but a millionaire in the wine industry. He had a self-made man who came from Russia and didn't have a cent, and developed a way to recycle wine barrels from all over the country, and became a millionaire, and had big Tubert vineyards. And my dad kind of grew up like that, but without a dad, and his mom wasn't too involved. So if we flash forward to this time to my mom and dad, and they're having a tough time, and they split up, and my dad writes to Chief of Police Parker in Los Angeles that he's looking for his father, one Ewell Tubert, who last known resident is somewhere in Los Angeles.
Yeah, wow.
This is like 1957, 58.
Okay, wow.
And he gets a letter back. Yeah, we found your father's here. This is his address, and this is his phone number. And my father reaches out to him and comes to the United States to look for his father, looking for family. Things are not going well in his life with my mom. And then after, 2-3 years go by, and he's kind of at a low point. My mom is at a low point, and my dad writes her, I want you to come to Los Angeles with the kids, and let's give it another try. And my mom, the fierce lioness that she is, says, if I come to Los Angeles, it's not to try. We're doing this thing. So in 1959, we came to the United States.
Wow. So did you see your dad at all during that time? Was he coming back?
Yes. One time within the 2.5-3 years, because he had taken my sister with him to Los Angeles, and
wow.
And he found it was too hard, and he came back to Argentina and dropped her off and came back here. My big thing to my mom as we were flying, she always tells a story of I said to her, am I going to recognize Papi? Am I going to recognize? And one other interesting side note.
Yeah.
See, I'm telling you, we could just do a whole thing on this, right? I don't know if it's interesting to everybody, but it's interesting to me.
It's interesting to me, yeah.
We were one of the last flights into Havana, because we came here in April, and in May, Castro shut it down.
Holy cow!
And we went, we were on a prop plane from Buenos Aires to Havana, and we took off in a storm and had to go back. And my great grandmother, who was in tears when we left and knew she would never see us again, who spoke Spanish with a Yiddish accent. She said, Nathan, ay, que lindo chico, digo yo. That's how she spoke. She was just amazing. And she when we flew back and got off the plane, she says, oh, you're back so soon. Then we flew to Havana, and then I remember that because it was the first time I had seen a coconut, and we got off the plane, we deplaned into this, wherever the little cafe, and I had coconut ice cream and half a coconut.
Oh, cool. Man, that would have been a really interesting side journey if you had been stuck in Havana for, 10 years or something.
Yeah, a bunch of Jews, which there were a lot of Jews stuck in Havana who got out with only the clothes on their back.
Right. Got it. Well, do you feel like looking back, that was a very pivotal time in terms of, not having both your parents around? Do you feel like that affected you in ways that you became aware of later?
Yeah. I think it gave me a sadness during that period. And my mom talks about it, and asthma and things. I was kind of a frail kid at that time. But my mom said that when we came here, I burgeoned. I just where my sister got more inward, she was more outward, became more inward. I became more outward and all that.
What part of LA were you living in?
We moved to Pomona.
Okay.
Which back then was like Leave It to Beaverland, very white neighborhood.
Did you feel like did you feel any trouble, joining this new Los Angeles culture, or, did you feel like an outsider, or were you just like, yeah, bring it on, I'm here?
It was joyous.
Yeah.
It was an amazing place to transition because we lived in this neighborhood where, in the summer you ran around barefooted. You went to the wash to get pollywogs and raise them to frogs. And they probably all died, whatever. And the neighbors would bring over food, whatever. It was it was a glory. I learned how to play stickball. I learned how to speak English. Came here on a Wednesday, and on Monday I was in school where nobody spoke Spanish. No teachers, no anybody. So it was an odd thing.
So, it also sounds like, did you feel embraced by the community in the school? Like,
we were totally embraced. It was just, to give you an idea of how white this is. And I consider, by the way, I consider myself a white person. I'm a Hispanic. Do I look like a person of color to you? It's a weird, don't even get me started on that stuff. No, I am a white person who was born in Argentina, lives in the United States. I never considered myself anything else, and I didn't feel anything different when I was in Pomona. But we had a neighbor across the street who said, we were very worried when we heard an Argentinian family was going to be moving into the neighborhood because we thought you were black.
Oh, geez.
So it was that... 1959, right?
I know. Because whenever the rain, God, what's the play that takes place? A Raisin in the Sun. Like, it's that kind of thing of like, all these families, like, we got to start moving out of here because, these black families are moving in, and, we got to get out of here. It's like, come on.
But I didn't feel any different than I say it's a white neighborhood, and we fit into the white neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
But it's a white neighborhood because there were no people of color.
Yeah.
It was,
Well, and I think you bring up an interesting point because it also seems like, and I don't want to paint too broad of a stroke here, but, not seeing yourself as a person of color, I think it seems to be also a bit of a generational perspective that, like there are probably people, under 30 or whatever that if they're Argentinian or Hispanic might consider themselves people of color, whereas for you, it just wasn't part of the makeup of,
they're in Argentina. You go to Argentina, first of all, the indigenous population was pretty much wiped out by the Spaniards, but they're still they call them los negros, the blacks in Spanish, right? But they are darker skinned, indigenous from the, working class, blue collar people in Argentina. But we weren't that. We were, of European descent, and just who landed in Argentina, and then we came here, and I didn't get a sense of that I was any different than anybody else.
Sure, yeah.
Junior high school, when I wanted to date a girl named Binnie Reynolds, we lived in Hancock Park as my dad had gotten more and more successful, and her dad said, "You're not going out with that Mexican." And I thought, like, what does that mean? There was a derogatory thing, right?
Yeah. And now you referenced your last name as Tubert. Is that the local or the Argentinian pronunciation, or has that been kind of Americanized?
Well,
was that what you guys?
It's after many, many generations in Russia for many generations.
Right.
And then during the pogroms, got out.
So what kind of work did your dad do that he was progressing and doing pretty well?
Well, my dad is a survivor, and it just never gives up. He's 95 now. I think he worked till he was 90.
Jeez, wow.
And in several careers. But my dad, when we came here, it was a struggle bus. In Spanish, it's Tubert. Tubert. But it's really from the Pyrenees. It's Tubert. Right? Because the family was started out in the region between Spain and France. And then during the Inquisition, they got the hell out. Jews on the run, I always say. And they ended up after many, many generations in Russia for many generations. Right. And then during the pogroms, got out.
Yeah, no kidding. So what kind of work did your dad do that he was, progressing and doing pretty well?
Well, my dad is a survivor, and it just never gives up. He's 95 now. I think he worked till he was 90.
Jeez, wow.
And in several careers. But my dad, when we came here, it was a struggle bus. Here he was with his family. He bought a house this in Pomona.
Wow.
I had never even, I had seen TV one time when I had gone to Buenos Aires with my grandmother's, and we went to an appliance shop.
Mm-hmm.
You know, here we had a house and we had a TV. My mom we had a phone. In Argentina, we had been on a list for a phone. My mom for like 4 years, never had one.
Wow.
And then my mom was here with a phone and she had no one to call, ironically. What was the question? I got off on this tangent.
What your dad was doing.
My dad did. Yeah. So when we were in Pomona, right, which before the 60 freeway, for those people who know Los Angeles, it was from downtown Los Angeles to Pomona was roads. You know, there was no freeways or anything. And my dad he drove trucks, sand trucks. He worked in a gas station for $1 an hour. He worked learned how to draw mail thing. And eventually, my dad's a born salesman. And I always remember him saying that, you know, if you sell shoes, you get commission on shoes. Mm-hmm. So he was looking for a big ticket item that he could sell.
Yeah, sure.
So get bigger commissions. And in the 60s, there was a big move in the Los Angeles construction business of on your lot construction. So he would go into the areas of like Downey, Cudahy, Bell Gardens, wherever there was a Hispanic population, because his English was not good. Mm-hmm. And he would he'd do the research and find areas where you could have more than one house or more than one unit. And he'd knock on the door and he'd say, hey, you know, do you ever think of we could build a house for this much money? You could rent it, blah, blah, blah. And he would sell that and he would get $250 a unit. And so that got him started. And
so just a hustler, just really like,
a hustler with an amazing drive and a man who did work on a handshake. People trusted him because he was he was a man of integrity. I mean, he would, you know, the Hispanic community that he was working with primarily, they didn't have credit. They didn't have,
right, sure.
You know,
yeah.
So there was, and I'll never forget this. There was one of his lenders was Keystone Savings and Loan. I think it was the Savings and Loan. Mm-hmm. And there was his guy there was this guy, Len Hyder. And my dad loved golf and they would play golf together. Mm-hmm. And, you know, Len would go, Maurice, I can't give you the loan on that Garcia thing. They don't show any income. How can I lend them $4,000 to build this house? Right. And my dad goes, Len, I'm telling you, these people are solid. They work. They pay their bills. Trust me on this. Maurice, I can't. My dad would get to the next hole. He'd say, okay, this par 3 here, closest to the hole. If I get closest to the hole, you give him the loan, okay? They would do business like that.
Wow.
And he established a reputation. Anyway, eventually they started cheating him out of his commissions because he was the best. And he started his own company.
Oh, really?
He became very, very successful.
Oh, cool.
Then had several other careers after the crash of the 80s.
All right. So we got up to you being in high school and you know, you had interest in certain things, but not in school. And so did you had an idea of what you wanted to do when you get out of school, or like where were you? Like
just lost. I just thought I just was lazy, and I thought I just want to be an actor. I think I had success with my pantomime, and I had success in plays. I played El Gallo in a truncated production of The Fantastic that was for a festival, and I can't sing, but I had the most amazing Moody, we call her. She just died a couple of years ago, and I've been in contact with her my whole life after high school. And Moody was this amazing soul, right? Mm-hmm. And going to her class she was just great. And so I couldn't sing, and she gave me a chance. She gave me, try to remember. I was just horrible. And she gave me a chance, and then about like a week before opening, she goes, Marcelo, I have an idea. And she brought in 3 madrigals and a guitar. And they would sing the song, and I would say it, Rex Harrison style, over them.
Yeah.
It was a huge success. And I thought, I think I can do this. I think I can do this. And then I didn't have really high aspirations. I don't know. I was, smoking a lot of weed and doing drugs and stuff, and I just was kind of living life, right? And just
is this like the late 60s, early 70s or something?
Oh yeah. This is I graduated in 70s, so
okay.
We used to drop acid. We used to just smoke grass. We used to do all that, and I was an artist. My friends were all artists and poets and things, and I wasn't like really driven, you know. I'm going to go to LACC because I knew that it was a great academy for acting.
Okay.
And I said, I'm going to go to LA. You know, I could have probably, if I'd had ambition, could have gone to, thought about something on the East Coast or, you know, one of the big schools or going to England. Who knows? But I just didn't have that worldview at the time.
So did you like, I mean, I know you mentioned the aspirations thing, but did you have influences in terms of on yourself as an actor? Were there people that you really looked up to and admired, or, you know, whether it was your mom as a kid or whatever, anyone else?
They did eventually, you know, because I went to LA City College and was in that department, but still, you know, I was living this crazy life and just, I guess, you build character and things through that. I don't think I was a very good actor back then. I can assure you I wasn't a very good actor. I had potential, but I didn't have it. And I didn't, you know, even at City College, I didn't take total advantage of what they had to offer, right?
You know, I'm just trying to imagine your dad, who you described as like such a hard worker and just notes to the ground. And then, you know, you are.
Dude, he said he wanted me to be a lawyer in his company, right? To take care of all that.
Yeah.
And when I was in junior high school, I wanted to be a lawyer. And then when I got to high school, that flew out. And I said, Dad, I'm going to be an actor. I'm going to go to LACC and study acting. He goes, well, good luck with that. And he would have supported me in anything. He had the means to send me to the best schools. And so he took away, I think, but they did buy me my first car when I was a senior in high school. Okay. I think they paid my insurance, but that was it. And then I was on my own, you know, and I
must have been. Well, I want to touch back on that, but it must have been so karmically ironic for him.
Devastating.
Well, and also the fact that, like, you know, his wife, you know, was an artist and actress, and, you know, like, he had to go through his own challenges with that, and then suddenly now his son wants to be an actor, and it's just, you know.
Yeah, the irony was not lost on anybody.
Okay, so you said they kind of cut you off. Like, was your mom on board with this? Was she in line with him?
Yeah, my mom was always supportive, but my dad had the purse strings.
Got it. Yeah.
And so I just went about my business, and I got married early at 23. I had done the play. The last play I did at LA City College was during the summer, called Dylan. Mm-hmm. You know, and I was just in one scene at the very end. There's a great, beautiful, touching scene, and this ship worker, you know, a sailor. Yeah. And I was in that scene, and the woman who they would bring back professional actors to work with the students.
Oh, okay.
And so I eventually married that woman, who was a fabulous actress. And I remember, you know, working on auditions with her for you know, TV stuff and all that. And I just remember, I was thinking, I always thought, man, she's so good. I am so not good. You know, I mean, you know, Krishnamurti said, can you live without comparisons? But I couldn't. I just thought, I am just not, she is really good. I really admired her. And she was very good. And so right after I left, I hooked up with Alejandro Rey, who was a big movie star. And he had been at the Actors Studio. Mm-hmm. He was he played Carlos in The Flying Nun.
Oh, okay.
But he did Moscow on the Hudson. He did some amazing work later on in his life, because he thought, until he found the Actors Studio, he thought he was a fraud always. He was this huge international movie star, but he never knew what he was doing, he said. So he always felt like a fraud. And then he found the Actors Studio, and my dad was having lunch with the president of Argentina Airlines and Alejandro one day, and talking about business and things, because Alejandro had a movie he wrote that he wanted to shoot in Argentina, wanted Argentina Airlines support. And my dad did not bring up that I was an actor, but Argentina Airlines president said, you know, Tubert's son's an actor. And he said, well, have him call me. And so I called him, and my friend Janine and we did a scene we just did a Picnic. You know, I played Howard. Yeah, I played Howard. You know, what is that line? I always, well as a hole in the ground, Howard. I mean, she's sort of like, anyway, so he said, have him come over because I wanted to get a part in his movie. So my friend Janine and I from City College, we went over to his house, did the scene, which was horrendous and beyond horrendous, you know, I'm playing a guy, you know, I'm 22 or something, 23. And, you know, the character is older. I'm playing the older character, right? In Big
Yeah.
Man. And he starts directing us and starts getting these performances.
Mm.
And he got really excited. And because of that, he started an acting class. So John Saxon, Tina Sinatra, and we had quite the group of actors. And he became like my older brother. He was my mentor.
So do you feel like that was what solidified or was that the start of solidifying any kind of technique that you developed more than LACC?
Well,
because of your own, how would I put it? Like the fact that you said you weren't really taking advantage of things at LACC as much as you could have, and not necessarily that the program wasn't good, but that was it these classes that really started to create your...
I mean, I got a lot of technique at LA City College, and I did Henry IV Part 1.
Oh, okay.
And I played Douglas and Mistress Quigley, and then because they wanted to do it as done originally, and then they decided it wasn't working, so I just played Douglas in that, and not a good production, but so I got a lot of stuff at LACC, about makeup and voice and things, and
but
I still was kind of living this kind of wild life and not paying too much attention to anybody, but and taking advantage of it, right? But I was exposed to all that stuff, technique. Jerry Blunt, a very famous college professor who wrote a book on acting and directed us. That was his last production, Henry IV Part 1. And so I through osmosis, I picked up a lot, and I read a lot. I read a lot of plays. I did a lot of really good things. And then Alejandro opened my eyes. So I was becoming more creative and being aware of the creative process. And this thing with the Actors Studio was really interesting. And ultimately, I found that it was not, as I started working later on, not really usable for TV, right? So you get a co-star role and you have, 4 lines. And
right, yeah, of course.
You're not going to, it just didn't work on a practical level for me.
Okay.
But I was exposed and got to work with some amazing people and do some amazing work. And so it was something else that started coming, right? I started my goals then all of a sudden became to be a better actor tomorrow than I am today. That became still is my credo, right?
And so, I'm just curious, how are you supporting yourself, post-college and as you're taking these classes?
Terrible. I was a gardener. I had every job. I was selling grass. I was, whatever I could to get by, and unemployment, and it was a struggle until Alejandro hired me. He got hired to do to direct a show called Via Alegre, which is on PBS. And it was a big, huge children's hit, bilingual. So he hired me as his assistant. Alejandro was I learned so much from him. 2 of the main things that I carry with me still are, don't ever ask, was that okay? He said, there's too much at stake. People will tell you if it's not okay. It is needy to ask if you're okay. And I'm sure you see it. You might have done it yourself. I have to fight it all the time. You don't ask, was that take okay? Or, you have that run through. You ask, was that okay?
Right. Yeah.
So that was one big thing, the one thing. And the other thing that I learned from him was don't fight with the director. He was a very volatile fist fight on sets with kind of guy.
Wow.
Yeah. And he says, just listen to them. And if you don't agree, just do your thing and just listen and do your thing. So those are 2 things. Anyway, he, in his volatile state, he got fired from Via Alegre a few months in because he had been studying film and stuff, and he wanted to shoot this kids show on PBS like movies, right? And they don't have the time or the money,
right?
And he was at odds as always with people.
So the idea of don't fight with the director. Do you think that was him seeing
bad
as a director how difficult he was, or
how bad it was for him and his career along the way? How bad it was for him to get into fist fights. I mean, literally fights, right? It was bad for him in his career.
Well, okay. So now, just so I'm clear, when he would be fighting, was he being hired as an actor, or was he the director?
No, as an actor. He was later on, he became a director.
Okay.
And then he got fired from that show, but I stayed on that show.
Got it. Okay.
And as a dialogue coach.
Oh, okay.
And that casting director, Marilyn Granis, look at that name came to me, sweetheart. She, I worked for like 2 years, I think, on that show. Towards the end of the second year, she brought me in to read. I didn't have my SAG card. She brought me in to read for a PBS show called Tom Wolfe's Los Angeles, that Tom Wolfe had written.
Okay.
And so Alejandro at that time, he was also very into the I Ching, throwing the coins and the books and the reading your future.
Oh, okay.
It's a Chinese thing. And so I was doing it too, and so that day that I had this, I was going to read for the Chicano gang member.
Okay.
And that day my I Ching basically said, pull out the stops, don't hold back. Yeah. So I went in on Hollywood Boulevard, Franklin Avenue, just west of Highland. There was a motel up there. I can't remember. I remember it was on the second floor. And I was reading with the director-producer of the thing across a folding table.
Okay.
And I finished I finished my audition, and I grabbed him across the table with both hands and pulled him over the table. I said, if I don't get this fucking job, I'm going to kill you. I get arrested today. Anyway, I got the job.
Oh, jeez.
And I got my SAG card.
Wow. And I know I've heard this term, but I just want to clarify, like, real quick, when you were a dialogue coach in the other show, that just means like you're running the lines with the actors, the performers,
yeah,
right?
With the kids, especially the kids, but any of the actors that need help. And also I was there because I was bilingual.
Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah. So I that's why they kept me on. So that was all fortuitous, right? Meaning Alejandro and that, and then Marilyn Granis and getting my card.
And so, yeah, I mean, with the audition, and I mean, I thought it was going to be something like within the context of the scene you did, but like it was something
after the scene, man. And so now we shoot this thing in Boyle Heights at this old synagogue.
Right.
I'm wearing this. I don't know why somebody didn't say something. This little dainty little like Cartier watch. It wasn't Cartier, but it was just
something like that,
on my hand. I'm a Chicano gangbanger. Anyway, we fast forward to they're going to show the film up in that same motel room. And Tom Wolfe is there in his white suit. Wow. He's sitting behind me. I'm there with my ex-wife and he's sitting behind me. And I give the worst performance you're ever likely to see an actor give. I remember there's a scene where I have to laugh hysterically.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do that. I would practice laughing, and I could, to this day, I can laugh with the best of them immediately.
Sure,
right? Yeah. But I had to, it was this forced, why the director didn't stop me. And as this thing, as my scenes are on there, I'm just slipping lower into my seat.
Oh, geez.
Because I can just see how bad it was. But it was the beginning. I had my SAG card, and I bought my SAG card, I bought my equity card, and I bought my after card all at the same time.
Wow. Well, and things could only go up from there, Marcelo.
And they did. And they did.
I was curious, since you mentioned, different or of color never really factored into it. How aware, or like, was it much of a shift when you started like going out for things and they're like, oh yeah, you're going to be the Mexican guy, or you're going to be the Latin this, or what? I mean, like, did you just embrace that? Did it matter to you? Did you care about it?
I did. It didn't.
Because I imagine there's some kind of stereotype of like, oh, you look like this, so we're just going to give you all these kinds of roles.
So, I went out for French waiters and Spanish accented people and, and Golden Girls. I played Estelle Getty's boyfriend. I got my first screen kiss and my second screen kiss on that episode. I never thought of it that way. Well, that's not true. Let me go back a little bit. So just from a learning thing, there were two other teachers that were highly influential. After Alejandro was Ed Hooks.
Okay.
And I took a scene study class with him because I just happened to have gone to a commercial class with my wife. She went to a commercial class her agent had recommended, and I drove her. And when you're there, he makes you perform even if you're just observing. And even though I was just there observing with her, he made me get up, And at the end, I was chitting and chatting with him, and I said, yeah, I'm not really a commercial actor. And he goes, why aren't you a commercial? And so I started taking his commercial class and then a scene study class. And because of him, I had my first agent. And I used to do mostly Spanish commercials.
Okay.
But tons.
That would air in the U.S. or other markets?
No, all U.S., yeah. And then that scene study class, and then from that scene study class, I went to Gordon Hunt's class where I was for 9 years, and some of my closest friends come out of that class, and Gordon's, Helen Hunt she was a teenager and she was in class with us, and he had a Wednesday class and a Monday class. We had a big rivalry between the two classes, and so Helen was
and it was scene study or
yeah, scene study. Okay, no, scene study.
Like new material or classic plays, anything.
Whatever you wanted, he wanted you to take responsibility for anything you did. And Johnny was John Sesson, from Breaking Bad, the really bad guy. John.
The really bad. Wait.
Yeah, the really bad guy, with the bald guy, who was in. Oh my God, John. Sorry for forgetting your name, my friend. Anyway, he was in class, and so was Art LaFleur was in the Monday class. All these guys became big time, and my friends became big time producers, directors. All came out of Gordon's class. Anyway.
Do you mean the Hector Salamanca character?
No, not Hispanic. He wasn't the Hispanic character. I'm looking it up here. Now you've made me.
That was driving me crazy because I've seen all the episodes.
The guy with he's bald with big ears and.
Jonathan Banks.
Johnny Banks. Thank you. Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay. Mike. Yeah. Mike Ehrmantraut. Okay.
Right. So John was in the Monday class. Yeah. It was a who's who. Anyway, Helen had come back from auditioning for Speed the Plow on Broadway. For the first production, and she had the script with her, and we were able to. We did myself and my friend Nat Bernstein, who's now a big showrunner. The three of us did a scene from that.
Oh, cool!
So it was an amazing class. We can get into that thing, but I'm going to go back to the other question that you had.
It was like the typecasting kind of thing, or
Oh yeah, so I the first agent I had.
Yep.
I walked into his office without an appointment, and I said, I'm looking for an agent, and they said, you're really good. He was known for day players, right?
Okay.
And he was a super, super nice man. And he eventually had me read for him. Come back on Tuesday and read. And he gave me some stuff, and I'm sitting across the desk from him, and as I'm reading, and I get to this really emotional part, the phone rings, he goes, hang on just a second. And he answers the phone. Anyway, he takes me on. And so I started going up.
You didn't reach across and grab him by the collar, right?
I didn't. And
probably a good move.
Yeah. And so he takes me on, and I start going up. A lot of Hispanic characters, although the first big part that I did was a recurring role on Simon & Simon as Dr. Suvi Raj. And I had to learn the accent, but I was very, very good at it. And I had a very good time with the boys doing that for a couple of seasons. But in conversations with Alejandro, because the bane of his existence was his accent. So I would work with him hours and hours. I remember Moscow on the Hudson and other films he was working on. He just wanted to get rid of it, but he couldn't. And so one day we were just sitting around smoking the doobie, and he goes like, you do not speak with an accent. You should change your name to Mark. And I go, yeah, Alejandro, that's a good idea. I think I'll do that. So, because I was trying to get more generic, because I feel I don't speak with an accent. I look like this. I played Dr. Suvi Raj. I played French waiters.
Right.
So I changed my name to Mark, M-A-R-C, Tubert. There's still certain casting directors, and like Jimmy Smith still calls me Mark.
Oh, really?
And I've worked a lot with him. And I never responded well to it. To people like, Mark, you're on now. Mark. I go like, what? Oh, yeah, I'm coming.
Yeah, that's me.
And I always would go like, no, go ahead. Call me Marcelo. Right? So I changed it after 4 years. So that was an attempt to, I guess, to find myself in these situations where I want to be. I want to read for everything, right?
And I know we skipped over it a little bit, but I did notice at least what was listed as your first TV job was on that show Heart to Heart. And I mean, that seems like kind of a big deal and a big scene, because, you're opposite Robert Wagner, Stephanie Powers. I mean, do you remember like getting like the audition, getting the show? Like, do you like, were you just full of nerves?
You have no idea of the fucking panic. I almost quit acting after that.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Reza Badi, who directed that episode, was a friend of my ex-wife's and a group of friends that we used to hang out with. And I think he just cast me. I don't remember auditioning for that.
Okay.
And so I just had, I don't know if you ever saw the little episode. I really have 2 lines,
Yep.
Mrs. Hart, good to see you. This way, please.
Yep.
So 4 days before doing it, I just would go over the lines over and over and over in the shower,
lines.
over and over and over.
Yep.
And I got on the set, and we were at Universal. It was one of the really big sound studios where they had created that hotel in Colombia.
Okay,
And so, and it was just going to be, Reza comes, it's going to be just one shot, we're going to, on action, they're going to come in, you're going to greet them, pass to the camera, blah, 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 whatever the camera was doing. And I said, okay. And okay, let's rehearse one, and action. Mr. and Mrs. Hart. Cut. You all right? Yeah, I'm fine. Okay, let's try one more. Let's do one more rehearsal. And action. Mr. and Mrs. Hart. Cut. Robert Wagner grabs my hand with his 2 hands, looks into my eyes, doesn't say a word, but just like, it's going to be okay, kid. It's going to be okay. And all right, let's try one for real now. And action. And I did it. I think we did 2 takes.
Yep.
I went out to my car and just started crying. I just thought, I can't fucking remember 2 lines.
Wow.
I've done whole plays. I've done leads in whole plays. I can't remember 2 lines. I can't do this. I'm horrible. This is not for me.
Wow.
The sheer panic of it. I had a panic attack. Really, as I look back on it, it was a horrendous moment in my soul.
And I mean, I know obviously, looking back, you can compress time, but how long did it take you to kind of get through that and get over that?
The next job was easier, and it was a Quincy.
Yeah.
I had a little more to say, not much, but I did have more. No accent.
Did you find you were, even the little time you were on set, observing, the regulars or the stars of what are they doing? Were you looking at that?
That first time I just was like a deer in the headlights. I was like,
yeah, of course.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Eventually, something that I developed is I'm always on the set way before I need to be there. I want to check out where I'm going to be working, the thing. I want to feel the mood of the crew. I want to feel the mood of the actors. I always, before my scene comes up, I always check that out. It's kind of my standard practice for many, many years. Things that you develop out of sheer just of doing it so much, right?
Yeah. And so, at this time where, you're starting to do some work, in TV and film, you also you were doing more theater in Los Angeles as well, because you did that production. You did a production with Stages Theater with Paul Verdier.
And Ionesco, Eugene Ionesco. Monsieur.
Yeah, so was he there? Was Ionesco
yes.
Wow.
We hung out with Monsieur and Madame Ionesco. And Norman Seeff, the amazing, director and photographer, if you look him up. I have pictures. Oh my God. I gotta send you some of these. We got together one day and all of us in costume, and Norman bought a bunch of booze and shit. He was shooting covers for the Rolling Stones
wow.
And we shot the session, and I have pictures with the SU UNESCO. Well, let's see. So this was happening. I went to work for my dad eventually. Where things were really bad for me. It was after Villa Alegre. And
so late 70s kind of in there before the TV work started?
The TV work had just started, but I was tired of being poor. My dad offered an opportunity, and I went into the corporate world, and, I worked my way to executive vice president in charge of, I was running the purchasing and the supervision of 250, 300 condo unit constructions and stuff like that.
Wow.
And hating every moment of it. And, I got my ear pierced during this time because I had to remind myself I was an artist.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And that was right before meeting Ed Hooks and starting that class. So I went
Okay.
2 years. It was the only time I went 2 years without acting.
Okay, so you weren't doing anything,
For 2 years.
Wow.
And I worked with him for 7.
And that's tough, especially like being in LA too. It's like, it would be one thing if you were just like, in the middle of nowhere and there isn't an art scene, but you're in Los Angeles.
I'm in Los Angeles, though. I'm an unhappy marriage. I'm making tons of money. I have apartment buildings. I'm driving a BMW, and it's so unhappy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And so I start working more and more as an actor towards I'm back in class with Ed Hooks, and by 82, 83, I'm in Gordon's class. But
Yep.
I get to a certain point where I'm getting divorced, and I go to my dad and I said, "Here are the keys to the BMW. Here are all my credit cards. Thank you so much for this beautiful opportunity you've given me. But I'm an actor, and this is I'm a big boy now. I got to do what I got to do. I don't know what's going to happen." And I jumped off the ledge.
Was it, I mean, it sounds like there may have been a number of factors, but was it, the marriage or anything individual that you were feeling was really kind of lighting a fire of like, I've got to do something, a little bit more proactive here?
Yeah, well, I think I had started the classes was one. I've been working I started, doing a bunch of TV work. So I was working as an actor, and I thought, this is what I do. And I'd gotten better.
Yeah.
Yay.
Well, and it's also really cool that, like you were saying, like you were so directionless as a kid, but, like probably a lot of people, you just need to find your way of learning and your path so that like now you had kind of locked onto something that you were really ambitious about.
Yeah. And, all those, you can't regret all those other things, missed opportunities, because that's what makes me the person I was, right?
Sure.
All those life experiences and difficulties made me the person I am. And that I became. So then I started, I started this kind of second part of my life and met Lori, and it was fabulous. And then the thing that ultimately changed my artistic life, because I was, we lived in a little bungalow. I was paying $420 a month, and we were having a great time. Lori would go off and do regional theater. I'd go off and do regional theater. We didn't have very much money, but I was so much happier. I had lost everything in my divorce. Everything. Wow, I started from zero. I lived in my car for a bit. I mean, I really started from zero. And so I was in the building stage, but just, we were just so happy. And then my friend, who you may know, Lillian Grogg.
Sure. I know the name at least. Yeah.
Yes, one of the founders of Antius.
Yep.
She said, who's kind of responsible for my career just as a human being, is responsible for my career, theater, and everything. Said, hey, I do this thing called looping, and there's this job coming up on a movie called Milagro Beanfield Awards, and they need people who are bilingual. They can do accents, New Mexico accents in English, and speak Spanish. Are you interested? I go, yeah, well, I've looped myself. She goes, yeah, no, it's not that. This is all kind of improvised. I go, yeah, put me down. So I got my first looping job, and happened, Robert Redford was in the room directing all the ADR.
Oh, cool.
It was very nice. And that moment changed my life forever.
Really?
Yes. Because all of a sudden, I was good. I'm good at improvising, I realized, right? And so this woman who hired me to do that, the loop group leader, started hiring me. And I forget I think the SAG minimum at that time was like $480 or $520. All of a sudden, I was doing like 20, 25 jobs a year.
Wow.
With receipt. And I thought, oh my God.
Ding, ding, ding. Yeah.
Oh my God. And I could still do the other thing. But look at the money. Oh my God. Right? And so I built a looping career, which gave me the flexibility to say no. And gave me the fuck it adjustment that if I auditioned for this role on whatever, and I didn't get it, I had 2 jobs lined up for the next couple of weeks. So, eventually I was like doing 60, 65 jobs a year.
Wow.
I'm not doing as many.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, did you at that time know that you wanted to, stay involved in TV, in film, in voiceover, in theater? Had you kind of mapped that out for yourself, or were you just like, well, whoever's going to hire me, I'll do that?
I don't think about shit like that. I'd never plan. I just don't think too much about it. I don't know. I just how I'm made up. I just kind of.
It's the 1970s. Marcelo still tracking through.
Yeah, I'm just an old hippie, and I never, I don't think I've had the career I maybe imagined I would have.
Yeah.
And every time I say I might be disappointed, my wife slaps me, because she says, how many people would love to do what you're doing? So what I've managed to do in 40 years is be a working actor without having to be a gardener, a waiter.
Right.
So I've raised two amazing kids. We live in a beautiful house. I live a life that I am proud of. Without having I've been very close to having series regulars. I've been the lead in pilots, things that haven't sold. But, I just continue to work. And so my goal has been to just continue to work. And so I haven't had a series. It could happen tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, and I wanted to ask about the relationship thing, because it sounds like, okay, so you had two marriages and both to actresses. And what do you feel like you learned from the first one that, it's like, okay, I'm going to do this differently? Or was there anything from your parents? Like, you said your mom saying, we're not going to try, we're actually going to do this. So, were there things that, no, because I know sometimes the dynamic between actors, especially if one's career is in a very different place, or there's any insecurity about what, I can do versus what she can do or whatever. So, I mean, how do you feel like you were handling that differently in the second relationship with Lori?
Well, Lori is an amazing human being, because she, when the kids would complain about, oh, Daddy's got to go, for 2 months. She goes, hey, suck it up. This is what we do. We're a showbiz family.
Yeah.
And so Lori and I are all about each of us doing our own thing and being supportive. And so you just can't ask for anything more than that, right? She made it clear to the kids, that, this is what we do. We're actors. If we go away, Daddy goes, doesn't mean, an example of that is when I was going to go off to do Lillian's play at Yale Rep, Ladies of the Camellias. So every time I go off to do a play, I lose money, because all that loop, thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
I'm not available. Then it takes a while when I get back to get in the loop of it all again. And I'm making $720 a week, all that, right? But I was so excited to go to this production at Yale Rep. And my Emily, my oldest, who was, I want to say, maybe 9 or 10. Let's see, we were at this house. So she was 10 or 11. Lori's swimming laps in the backyard, and Emily's just crying, unconsolable, snotty crying, with snot dripping off her nose. No, Dad, you can't go for 2 months. You love your work more than you love us. One of those, right?
Yeah.
And so, just to backtrack, Emily's a straight A student and, honor. Just everything, right? She's like her mom, super, both my kids, especially Emily was like they're both super brainiacs, like Lori, who was cum laude, and everything that I wasn't in school, she was. So Lori swims over to the side of the pool, goes, Emily, what's the matter? No, Daddy's going for 2 months. He doesn't love us. She goes, hey, Em. What, Mom? You can go with him. What? Really? I could. Okay. She just, that's how Lori is, right? Emily ultimately decides she's not going to leave her world to go be with Daddy in Yale. I couldn't live any other way. My first wife was not as supportive of my work, because she was a little snobby about acting and frustrated about what she didn't have and all that. But it gave me a sense of freedom about traveling about the world and without her or whatever. But Lori is all about no, this is what we do.
Right. Just a very kind of pragmatic, practical approach to it, and that it's a job
and supportive.
And
we support each other. I support her. She supports me, because this is my job. I'm just a regular guy who acts. That's my job.
Yeah.
So there's nothing, people go, oh, it's so glamorous and it's all this.
And does Lori do a lot of the same kind of stuff that you did? Does she do voiceover? Does she do
she does
theater?
Yeah,
TV?
I mean, Lori is a writer and director. I mean, she has written amazing radio plays. She was the head of, my friends were running the Gene Autry Museum Radio Theater. And when they stepped down, they handed the reins to Lori, and Lori wrote and directed a bunch of radio plays, including adapting F. Scott Momaday. It was a Pulitzer Prize winning writer. She adapted a 3-hour play of his into a 1-hour radio show. And so she's amazing, and she's an amazing writer. She's at the Antius Writers Lab. Cool. She's directed theater, and
have you guys ever collaborated together on a project?
Yeah. I always give her a hard time, so she doesn't like working with me. I've gotten better, though. I mean, she says, do you do that with all your directors? I go, probably not. But she directed me in 3 or 4 of the radio plays. And she was amazing. And she just wrote a piece for me that she may be developing. And I said, write something for me. And she wrote something for the lab that's just fucking amazing.
You brought up the Lady of the Camellias, and I was curious about it because, here was something that, you came back to it 15 years later, playing the same role. And, I'm just curious a little bit, like, what was your experience of returning to that part? I mean, obviously you originated the role,
I did.
And then did it subsequently kind of shortly after the original production, and then you're bringing it back. What was it like coming back into that world with a totally different cast, right? Like, because every time you did it, it looked like it was different cast members except for you.
Yeah, yes. Well, and we had a couple of holdovers. The second time we did it at the Colony. Melinda Peterson, who played the original Doozy, was in that production. It was sheer joy for me. Yeah. Because it was a character, we talked, I think before on the phone about instincts and stuff like that. When I got to audition for the first time for this piece, originally I was never ever going to do that piece. Lillian had developed the piece, and they had the theater was called the West End Playhouse, which was run by Michael Bell and Victoria Bell. Michael Bell of voiceover genius status. And the guy that had played Flavio Ando, which was Eleonora Duz's leading man, wasn't available for the opening week because of some other commitment. So they wanted an understudy. They didn't say that. I just had an audition. I had done a play. I had done a terrible play that Lillian directed, but we had cemented a friendship. So she brought me in to read, but I was never going to play that role because they had spent, I don't know how long she had spent in developing it as, for a year in developing the play with this other actor. And she, she's loyal. Yeah. Well, I read the sides for this thing. I didn't have to do anything. I was this guy. Wow. I thought, I know this guy. And he's this vain, over the top Italian leading man who'd just rather be looking at himself in the mirror, and man. It hit me right here, right? So I went and read what I did in my reading. I probably did opening night. 80% of what I did in my reading.
Yeah, sure.
And then Lillian said, You really fucked us over. We cannot not cast you. And they had to break the news to the other guy.
Oh, wow.
And that's how that began.
And the other guy was Javier Bardem, and he's okay.
He did fine. Yeah. So it was, the instincts sometimes are so strong about a character. And so doing it every time I've done it, that guy just surfaces. He's there. The blocking changes, and my other ideas come because you're working with a different director. Although Lillian directed the first 2 productions.
No, and I know obviously you've done a wide range of work, on screen and certainly voiceover and animation and drama and comedy and all this kind of stuff. But I was noticing, of your theater roles. You played that Pepe in El Grande Circus and the Sea Captain in San Francisco Pan. And then even I went back and I watched the clip of when you were on Jane the Virgin, this guy who was, supposedly cursed or whatever. And, just looking at those roles and you seem to get a lot of, at least particularly with the theater roles, a lot of attention, a lot of kind of notice for that work. Is there something that appeals to you with those parts? Do you feel like you just really kind of lock in with those types of characters?
Each one is so different, right? And I don't have the luxury to say, I don't get people don't send me scripts and then ask me if I want to do it or not. I mean, for the most part, I in the theater world, sometimes, yes, Lillian will say, hey, I want you to play this. And I will, I will follow her. If she says, jump off of here, I will jump off and I know I'll be safe.
But even still, even if you do a theater part, not everyone kind of clicks the way that it seems like certain characters did with you.
Certain things they just speak to me. They just, they're the writing. There's something in the writing.
Well, and obviously, like, you can't play the buffoonery. Like, that's not an active thing. But it's almost like, I don't know. Does that appeal to you? Like these characters who are so over the top and ridiculous and just like they're so. Like it's just you can't help but laugh at them because of how ridiculous they are.
Yeah, I'd never laugh at them as a character, but they do. There's something that about dudes have said about Flavio Mandel. He's beautiful. He's stupid. He's beautiful but stupid. There's something about characters who are not. They're just not really aware of how silly they are. But silly, I have a really big silly bone in me.
Okay, so you see like that's a way for that to kind of come out a little bit more than on NCIS or anything like that.
But then I play these serious roles that just also speak to me. I kind of throw myself into whatever comes my way. I have to make it the best possible, right? And I rely on my instincts to tell me what this is, right? What is this world this guy lives in, and what is he? I find my way into those things by just kind of putting myself in that world. And then all of a sudden I kind of am around in that, it's just, I rely heavily on my instincts.
Well, and I want to touch on that really quickly, but I was curious when I watched that scene from Jane the Virgin. I was very curious. Was Raul Julia at all kind of an influence with that part? Did you feel like, because I was watching that, I was like, I could see a little bit of Raul Julia in there at all. Okay,
I don't ever think of other actors when I'm doing my stuff. Okay. It's so, my process is so vapid. Yeah. I'm not thinking a lot about, other actors or a certain thing. I'm if it's a comedy, I'm looking for the comedy in it. What is it that makes this funny, And then it's sometimes when I'm not thinking about it, it comes out. It just, because my comedy chops are huge. They're strong in me, and I trust them.
And did you feel like that was developed over time, or that's always been okay?
I think it's been there somehow, but I tell you, I'm a better actor than I was.
Of course, yeah. But was that through the classes that you learned?
Everything. Through looping. Yeah. Looping is all improvised. When I did El Grande Circus de Coca-Cola, it was the only show I've ever done, film or TV, except this last commercial I did, where I didn't have any kind of butterflies in my stomach before going on. I was so secure on who I was as Pepe.
Yeah.
And developing that, and I was given free rein to improvise. So sometimes I added 10, 15 minutes to a show, much to the consternation of the producers and stuff. But because it was so hooked in, I was so hooked into that guy.
Right.
And then you trust it and you just do it.
Now, okay, we were talking about instinct and whatever process and technique, there is that you use. You had sent me this audition, this recent voiceover audition, and just for kind of NDA purposes, we won't disclose what it was, but it was for an animation or video game. It was a video game, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you get this. There's a little bit of script. There's a little bit of character description, but you were telling me beforehand that like you felt really good about this audition. So I was curious if you could kind of walk me through a little bit, like, okay, this lands in your email. What do you do?
Yeah. Do you have the description there handy?
Yeah, sure.
Because read me what it says about the character description.
So he has a mid to deep and somewhat rough or gravelly voice, but can be smooth in cadence, preferably. His speech is often almost cat-like and purring. Think rolled R's and drawing out of words, a la Eartha Kitt's Catwoman character.
Yeah, so that was kind of the key so those other things, the Harvey, I don't do impersonations, I don't do copy, I can't do that shit. It's not what I'm good at. But I found that in the and I don't have a hugely deep voice, normally.
Okay.
But I can get down in here, and I like that.
Get a little gravelly.
And then he's stretched, and it's just. So I just found a couple of places where I could do that little stretchy thing, and so I just gives me an idea, and I thought, I want to play with that, and I don't spend a lot of time. I probably should spend more time, but I didn't get the role, by the way. But I loved my audition, which happens a lot in voiceovers. You mostly don't get them, but that just kind of gave me a hint with the graveliness. I'm not going to try to imitate Bardin or any of those people they mentioned.
Yep.
I just try to find my own thing. Where can I find a word to I didn't really roll an R, but I kind of stretched a word. And I like the idea of the cat-like thing. So that gave me a thing about a rhythm and how maybe he talks. And so I did that I did a couple of different takes. And then I listened back to it and I thought, oh my gosh, that sounds really good. I liked it. Mm-hmm. And I sent it off to the agent and I said, hey, I really like this. And they go, yeah, that was really good.
And here's the actual audition Marcelo sent in.
I want to make this right. I will make this right. I just want to finish my nap first. Yes, scale the unscalable wall, pick the unpickable lock, evade the unblinking eye, blah, 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 blah. I thought you said this would be something new. There I was, staring into the silver eyes of the dragon atop the ice spire, my sling comrades strewn about me and the princess screaming, and I realized but speaking of silver, my cup is dry, and recalling my deeds is thirsty work. Who wants to buy the next round, huh? You?
And so, like, how do you kind of reconcile, and maybe you've gotten to a certain point with this, of you feel really good about the job, but then divorcing yourself from the result of getting the job and booking the project?
This is a Gordon Hunt thing, and this is a sports thing, and this is a life thing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's all about the process. Stay out of the results. You have no control. After the audition, whether it's on camera or a voiceover, or whatever. And I mean, there are things that I really want to get them. And I try not to think about it. Sometimes they creep in. But basically, after you're done the audition, you're done. They could decide they have his uncle is that guy. And so they want him to do it. Or, he reminds me of my uncle who I think is a shit. So I'm not, whatever. So that is such an important place to get to, I think, for artists, and we suffer as artists, I mean, actors in particular, about all the things we don't get, right? Mm-hmm. And really, all we have is the process. And it's my daughter was a golfer, in golf or any sport, they talk about you got to stay in the moment, you got to stay out of the result, stay in the moment, because that's all you got. And anytime you start doing the other thing, you're going to be tortured.
And do you feel like that also helped you, once you heard that from Gordon, take things less personally?
Yes. I don't take things personally. And
did you ever, or was that just never
Okay, and it's taken years. I mean, it's taken me a lifetime of being an actor to come to this. It isn't something I came to or that I had. No. Oh my God. Like walking out of auditions and thinking, oh my God, why didn't I just, if I had only, but, shooting yourself. I pretty much have stopped doing that. I 95% of the time I walk out of auditions going, yeah, that was pretty good. Yeah, I could book that.
Yep.
But it's been years in the coming. I mean, I wish if I could tell my younger self one thing as an actor back when I was in my 20s and early 30s, it would be that.
That it's going to happen?
No. That stay out of the results.
Yeah. Okay.
Stay with the process. Stay with the process.
And I mean, I know sometimes, kids, they necessarily don't want to hear what the other person has to say, but what have you tried? Have you tried to impart additional things to Sarah, since I know she pursues, acting and all that kind of stuff? I mean, is that the same kind of thing, or is there additional stuff that you're hoping that?
No. I tell her the same thing. because, she's young in her career. She's been reading for some big, big things. She's up for things. And she hasn't gotten the really big ones. And I just remind her that there's so many reasons why you don't get a role. And then every once in a while you'll get a role. So no, these things, I'm able to share that with her. But I can see how hard it is for her because, she's young. She's late 20s, and it's a hard thing. And it's a difficult concept. I just have lived, I've been fortunate enough. I've lived it, and I make a living, right? So it may be easier for me to say that. I'm in a place, financially, where I don't have to worry about paying bills. I don't have to, it's taken a lot of years, right, of work and stuff. And so if you got to pay your rent and you didn't get that job that would have been the thing that keeps you at Starbucks, or, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's a different deal. And that's, back to the looping that changed me, because I didn't have to depend on getting that job. And so it freed me up to not care.
Well, and as you pointed out, I mean, like, there were those 2 years where you did something else, because you had to pay the bills and you had to.
Those 2 years, I was making a lot of money in the corporate world, but I wasn't so unhappy.
Right. Of course. I got to ask, one, where did the fly fishing come from? Like, how did that become your go-to hobby?
Just another random moment in my life, right? I'm 8 years old, first vacation with my family in that's another story. I'd love to tell you the whole story. Anyway, we're in Yosemite with some friends of ours, other Argentinian family. We're all sleeping in the station wagon, camping, and the older kid of the other families, like 5 or 6 years older, has a fishing pole. He takes me to the bridge on the Merced River, which is the river that runs through the valley of Yosemite. And in those days, you could fish off there. There were lots of people fishing. I look down in this crystal clear water, and I see trout. And something happened in my heart, man. My heart sped up, like adrenaline, right? So we didn't catch anything, of course. And but I from that point on, I had my parents start buying me outdoor magazines, outdoor and fishing magazines. And I taught myself, because they don't fish, and they love the outdoors. They don't fish. So I taught myself to fish, and they would take me to Echo Park Lake downtown Los Angeles when I was 11 and 12. They dropped me off for 3-4 hours with a fishing pole. And so I started doing that. And so fishing was just like amazing, I had a break in fishing in my about 15 when I discovered girls. 15 to 17, it was not cool, but I didn't fish for a little bit. And then when I was 20, I was hitchhiking in Argentina, had gone back from my grandmother's wedding. And I was in the...
Wait, your grandmother's wedding?
Yeah, she...
Oh, wow. Good for her.
My grandfather died when I was 8 months old. And she had been a widow for 20 years. And she met a man, and I was 20 years old, and I sold enough pot to finance a trip. Can I say that on this podcast?
Yeah,
finance a trip to Argentina.
I think the statute of limitations has probably run out on that.
I don't do that anymore. But I financed a trip to Argentina. I was, after the wedding, hitchhiking all over Argentina. I'm down in Patagonia, hitchhiking.
Oh, cool.
I meet a fly fishing guide. Eventually, he invites me to his fishing camp in the middle of nowhere, and he's a fly fishing guide. And he tried to teach me to fly fish, and I'm wearing his girlfriend's boots, which are killing my feet. And the wind is heavy. I'm using these big weighted nymphs for those people who know fly fishing. And they keep getting stuck in the back of my head on the forward cast. But I was hooked on fly fishing. And so now I'm going to go Saturday, as a matter of fact, for a few days.
Oh, cool.
It is my, I don't know.
It's your meditator.
It's because you know what happens when I fly fish? I don't think about anything.
Yeah.
There's no other thought. I don't think about work, my wife, my children. I think about where the current, how my fly is floating, where the fish might be. Why aren't they biting? Why are they biting? So it sends me into this
happy place.
Oh, yeah, totally.
And did the cooking, was that something? I know you also are big into cooking. Like, did that dovetail with the fishing?
No.
Like, you just started?
No, because I catch and release. I don't catch I don't keep fish.
Well, you've never cooked anything?
I've killed enough fish for a lifetime. I used to when I was a kid, we used to go to Lake Arrowhead with my family, and I'd catch enough fish to feed 8 people. No, I don't have a problem. It's not a moral thing with the fish. It's because I fish.
But you do cook a lot.
I cook a lot. We take sardines when we fly fish. We eat sardines and things.
Okay.
So the cooking thing came out of because I love to eat. From the time I came to the United States, I would make Sunday breakfast, fried eggs. My dad taught me. The only thing my dad can do was fried eggs. My dad can't cook. And then my first wife was an amazing cook. And I learned a lot from her. And I just have developed my instinct. I'm an instinctual cook. I use recipes as a guideline.
And do you have a go-to that all right, this is one of Marcelo's specialties, or
you'd have to ask my kids. There's things that I make, I guess but I just made the last couple of days some stuff that just was just crazy good. But I get inspired, by a product or something that I see on Instagram, or I think, I could do that or make it better. Or I look at my refrigerator and I go, I got an idea. And that's what it's like doing a grande circus of Coca-Cola in the kitchen.
And hopefully it just doesn't take 10 or 15 minutes longer to prepare the meal when everybody's already hungry. You're just continuing to vamp.
You know what? They're just going to have to wait because
you make some chimichurri, you give them some chips, some wine.
Yeah, you just hang on here, have an old fashioned, and let's have a little drinky poo, and then we'll eaty poo.
Awesome. Marcelo, thank you so much for chatting today, man. This was really awesome. I really appreciate it.
That's cool. Cool.
It was great to hear a lot more about your story, and there was a lot I'd known. It was fantastic.
Yeah, I don't know if we talked a lot about acting, but
we did. We covered all of it. I mean, your career has been an actor, so yeah, it's all part of it.
I love my job, by the way. I love what I do. I'm happy. I love when I work. I love when I play. So I'm pretty much
awesome.
Into gratefulness and gratitude for everything I have.
That's right. I remember seeing you have this quote that I would see pop up in bios and things like that. What is the quote that you
live simply and remain grateful? Which is for people who just can't live out of your means. And I have a great wife for that. When we were struggling financially at certain times in our lives, she'd go, "You can't spend any money." Okay, no problem. So always live within my means and remain grateful, right? Because that's what we got. And I actually love my life.
Well, I'm thrilled to hear it. And good advice. So thanks, man. Really appreciate it. Hey there, this is Nathan one more time. Thanks so much for checking out the episode today. Please remember to subscribe so you don't miss anything ahead. If you enjoy what you've heard, please let others know. Write a review, post on social media, send an email, tell your entire acting class, or just a friend. I sincerely appreciate it. You can tag us at WAJ Podcast on Instagram and Twitter. We're also on Facebook and YouTube. I'd love to hear what you think of the show. Be sure to check out workingactorsjourney.com for our show notes with additional info and links mentioned in this episode, as well as all the episodes. We've got 25-plus interviews and 12-plus workshop presentations. Sign up for the email list so you're the first to hear about upcoming projects, workshops, and much, much more. Thanks again to today's guest and to everyone that makes these episodes possible. And a special thanks to you for listening. I'm Nathan Egan, and enjoy the journey.